Okay, today we're going to cover subjective and objective. This is also pretty vital to understand in philosophy. So let's get started. So first, objective things are testable, verifiable, either true or false, and it doesn't depend on opinion. For example, 2 plus 2 equals 4. The temperature is over 30 degrees centigrade. Humans are mortal. The table is made of wood. And then we have subjective, which is something someone believes or experiences. It depends on the person. Examples: rock music is the best music, blue is my favorite color, and I don't like coffee. So objective claims are very easily testable, if we have access to the thing, that is. For example, the table is made of wood. Let's look at that. So someone claims the table is made of wood. Anyone can test this claim. Does it look like wood? Does it feel like wood? Does it smell of wood? You can test this. However, subjective claims aren't as simple. If someone says, for example, the Beatles were the best band in history, you can't debate this directly. If you tie this to an objective standard, then it can be debated. For example, how many albums or songs did they sell? How popular were they? How influential were they? Do people still listen to them? How many? So in this way, you can actually debate it. So for example, someone could say, I think they're the best because they sold the most albums. And you could compare it against who sold the most albums and then verify if that's a valid belief or not. The problem comes with subjective claims is when they're not tieable to reality at all. For example, if someone says this: the Beatles are my favorite band because I like their music the most. You can't debate this in philosophy. So what are the counters to subjective and objective things? So the first one is the senses. So does objective reality exist? Can we trust our senses? So the senses are one of the 3 axioms you have to accept in order to do philosophy at all. I'll cover these in a future video. But generally what we do is we just presume they're real, because it's almost impossible to argue against the senses being valid. For example, I say, the senses aren't valid. You shouldn't believe in them. You're wrong. You're basically expecting me to hear what you're saying, understand it, and use my senses to understand that the senses aren't valid. If you understand the contradiction here. So if you want to basically be, if you want to be consistent and you want to believe that the senses aren't valid, then you shouldn't tell anyone the senses aren't valid and just live on your own and don't talk to anyone because they can't hear you. Basically, it's impossible to argue against using philosophy, and we just presume it's real. But it's impossible to actually prove it, generally, because you need to use the senses to prove the senses. It's impossible. And another counter is postmodernism, which claims things like, we use language and culture to perceive reality. Language is objective, and cultures are different. Therefore, we can't claim anything as truly objective. So postmodernism is a very large topic. I can't cover it in this video. This is just a simple kind of introduction to objective and subjective things, but I will cover this in a future video. But anyway, so objective things you can prove, testable in reality, and subjective things are opinions that you can't test and depends on the person. So let me know if you have any questions. I'll see you guys next time.